You yell at me for using this podcast as a platform for my love of film noir, and now you've given it to the communists. Welcome to Three Guys and a Pie, the podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm here with my co-host, Jonathan.
Yoo-hoo!
And again, lucky us, we have our guest Aaron on.
Always happy to be here.
Today, we kept going with the death and immortality shtick and got onto whether or not it is moral to live forever and if we would get bored. Another side note, kind of a trigger warning, we get into some kind of heavy stuff here, so...
Spoilers for The Good Place.
Oh yeah,
highly recommend stopping the podcast, watching the entire show and coming back.
Yes, and we do end with some SCPs, so maybe we'll talk about that in a later episode. So, last episode, we talked about kind of like the different ways that we might reach immortality in regards to dying of natural death. My argument for the black box kind of is a cure-all, but y'all seem to hate it. But
we don't hate it. It's just not an actual solution.
Right. It's like a shortcut.
It's a band-aid.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
And towards the end of the last episode, we got to the question of if people can and will live forever, would you choose to die at some point? And you kind of started bringing up that. You started to bring up that topic.
What I said was, presumably some people will want to die eventually, and Aaron pointed out that that's not a viewpoint I hold, which I disagree with.
False, because every time we've had this conversation prior, you have not even really lobbied the idea that you might just want to die one day.
Because it's not a relevant point.
How is it not a relevant point?
Because the whole point of lobbying for immortality is having the choice of when you're going to die.
But the way that you argue for this immortality is the fact that you seem like you just don't want to die.
I would prefer not to die.
So then why would you ever choose to die?
You get bored?
But that's also a point that you've never really talked too much about. Like, you've always made it sound like you weren't going to get bored.
Yeah, because I believe that point is literally thousands of years in the future. Which at some point I'm probably going to have died by an accident at that point. I don't see myself getting bored unless society really goes down the tubes or we stagnate technologically.
Well, if society really goes down the tubes, you might not have access to your futuristic super healthcare.
No, I'm saying like if in like 500 years in the future when we do like we've already cracked the immortality and society's just like, oh, well, we kind of went downhill now. Because this isn't a treatment that's repeated. It's you fix the problem and it's fixed. Some other thing, you're right, some other thing like disease and other things like that potentially isn't a permanent fix. You would have to just seek medical help for things like that.
So what you're saying is with your idea of immortality is, like you were making fun of my black box being a Band-Aid fix. You're not saying that with the possibility of being like a stopping cell death, that new diseases couldn't come about because we're stopping cell death. And it might be... You understand what I'm saying? Like, because we've stopped this, we might be opening the door for something much worse.
But nothing's worse than death. All you're doing is trading one death for another.
That's a personal...
But when you're talking about disease, like you can't have anything that's worse than death because if it's worse than death, you would just kill yourself.
Which some people do.
Exactly. So then the end game is irrelevant.
God, we haven't have to. We're 3 minutes in and we already need another trigger warning. Great.
Well, I mean,
no, but okay. So my point is, so if we end aging, and you're saying, okay, the end of aging, so we're not dying of natural causes anymore, but we create some super disease that makes your life terrible, and there's no correction for it. Is that your argument?
Not that there's no correction for it, but like it's kind of like, is the treatment worse than the cure kind of idea where, okay, well, yeah, now we can live forever, but now we have these like super bugs that could become a problem as well.
I would argue that if you have the technology and know-how to make people functionally, biologically immortal,
okay,
then you also have the technology to treat any new complications, diseases,
I guess it's a fair argument.
debilitating, issues or something that maybe we didn't see before.
Okay.
Like if you're at the point where you can do this kind of stuff, you should be able to treat it.
You shouldn't be hesitant to push technology further because of phantoms that aren't there.
That wasn't like my main point. I was just saying, like, do you think it would be feasible that could occur? Kind of like the I Am Legend line of thinking, oh, we cured cancer, now we have tons of vampires running about. You know what I mean?
Guess.
Like that was my main point.
But
really.
Realistically speaking,
you're right. Probably if we're already at that point, whatever hurdle we get isn't going to be a hurdle, it's going to be a speed bump.
And even if it is like a stopping block, we've still made it further. Like, we've discovered, we shouldn't be afraid to defeat death because there's some other bigger monster out there. Then that other monster just becomes another problem we have to defeat.
Okay.
Like, we shouldn't be like, oh, well, what if we cause some other problem by doing this? It should be, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the thinking changes if you're like, okay, we're seeing things that are going to cause something worse than death, which I argue is not possible.
Permanent sleep paralysis.
You're cured from death, but your sleep paralysis demon becomes real.
Yeah. But it's
in
more
a way,
so,
it is
like, there's nothing worse than death.
Yeah.
Because death is always an escape.
Yeah, sometimes.
Depending on what you believe.
Yeah.
All those
Again, religious
it's a
arguments
choice
aside.
everyone always has at every moment they're alive.
Yes.
Once you're dead, obviously you can't make the choice to go back to living, at least as far as we know. So
wouldn't that be a freaking trip? We cured immortality, but we also cured death. So, like, if you decide to die and you don't like it, you can come back. Just have once for yes, twice for no.
Sounds like you didn't really die the first time.
Once people stop dying, people stop being born. It's like, wait a second, what's going on here?
Well, I guess, like, that, like, could that be... I guess this is more, like, on the subject of your genetic immortality. Like, would children of people who've gotten these treatments, would they be inherently immortal? Or
I don't
would they...
know. I cannot speak to that. Okay. I don't know how that would work.
Okay, because, like, that's something, like... I'm thinking that you can get these treatments, but then, like, it's not, like, passed on genetically. I mean, who knows?
I would almost argue if you're getting these treatments, you shouldn't be allowed to have kids. But
really?
Oh, that's a
hot take.
Thing
yeah,
to say. You gotta explain yourself now.
Because
even though
you're getting... Then overpopulation does start. Because, like, right now, overpopulation is not really a concern. But if you have... Because, like... Our reproduction rate is roughly equivalent to 2, which means people are replacing, and that's where we'll level off. Where now, if you have people not dying, you no longer have that balance.
That's interesting.
I'm shocked you haven't brought up your... At this point in the argument, you haven't gone back to your, like, safe spot of post-scarcity society.
I never would have
trying to avoid it because you don't like that, Gary. But that is where I could go with this, where overpopulation won't be a problem.
Yeah, because that's what
we
I
can
was
just
thinking
send these people off world.
Okay, right. Yeah, I was gonna say I never took you for one to be the overcrowding, overpopulation.
Yeah, that's what
I'm being your devil's advocate here. I don't think it'll be a problem, but that is an argument that could be made.
Again, historic trends aren't exactly useful in predicting the future, but
especially when you're talking about the end of death.
Typically, when lifespans, get longer, people have less children, right?
Yeah.
As you get better health care, people live longer. There's a lower mortality rate. Populations kind of tend to self-correct.
It kind of stagnates around 2, though, historically, which matches the death rate because you need 2 to make 1.
I don't know. It's one of those things a lot of people are going to want to have kids, especially if they have forever to live life. Like, eventually, you would figure most people would at least want to try it once, right? Try parenting. No, not what you were thinking of.
No, but, like, I understand where you're coming from. Like, that's
a good point.
That does make more sense. Like, because I do know a lot of people. Well, hell, you two are both. Me and you, Aaron, have never had the conversation about whether or not you want kids. But I'm guessing the answer is no.
That's a large assumption.
I'm making a big assumption here because he usually
we have him here. We can ask the question.
Yeah,
he is a guest on this one too.
Yeah, that's what I was. Before you kind of like made it pretty friggin' obvious. Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at was him to explain himself, dick. Anyway,
my
name's not Richard.
I have to worry about really. I would be open to having kids someday, but I'm not like one of those people that know for sure that they want to have kids, or for sure they never want to have kids.
So you're the middle ground between me and Gary.
Sure.
I guess, because
Jonathan, Gary, who wants to have 50 children. And
okay, all right. Slow your roll, pal. I want to have at least
Gary wants an army.
Little me's running everywhere. No. I want at least one, maybe two. I would really like to have at least a son. If I have two daughters,
that's
or
sexist of you, Gary.
Well, no, there's a point to it, and it loops back around to why I like Tommy Boy. You don't want to have kids. I want to have at least one, and the reason why I want to have a son, it has nothing to do with like sexism or anything. I want to name my kid Thomas, so that when I'm raising my kid, I have my little Tommy Boy.
Oh, and I guess it would be cruel to name
your daughter Thomas
during our current society. Yes, they would probably get picked on a lot.
Yes,
you're
and
right. It would be cruel.
Yes, and if I call my daughter Tommy Boy, that might also be a factor in some other things as well. So, like, I don't want to do that to my kid right off the bat. Like,
it would. Yeah, you would be subjecting them to something that's not their fault that they might get picked
exactly.
on for.
So, like, no, I'm not going to name my daughter Thomas
because people are generally not very nice when they're kids.
So again, going with your whole overpopulation thing, if people aren't dying naturally anymore and the death rate is very low, obviously not zero, as we talked about before, you'll have accidental deaths and things like that, or
people just wanting to die,
suicide, murder, all that kind of stuff. It's generally when economic conditions worsen, people have fewer kids, statistically.
I don't know where you're going.
If times are different, okay, so if you're getting to the point where we're worried about overcrowding and resources are actually starting to become more scarce.
Oh, you're saying it'll self-correct.
Probably have fewer kids as a result, or hold off on having kids, or
and I'm not taking this as
like
I don't think overcrowding will ever be an issue, because like there's too many factors, like you're saying, with like economic correction and just societal correction. It's not going to be an issue. We have space for way more people than we'll probably have predicted to reach.
Yeah. Also, before we would reach, I think, overpopulation being like a huge issue, I think by this time when we've solved immortality, I'm sure that we've also figured out a way how to make, living at the bottom of the ocean feasible.
No, it's more feasible to live in space than it is to live at the bottom of the ocean.
Either way, we would have cracked one of those. We would have cracked one of those nuts way open.
Yeah, that's my whole argument. Why, like.
This is the one time where I actually agree with you.
Yeah, where a Dyson sphere and immortality are two separate...
The freaking Dyson sphere is coming back.
It's what we talked about.
It's two separate trains. They might arrive at the station at different times, or they might... Like, one might be ahead of the other, but it's not... One's not following the other.
Yeah, they're on two separate tracks. I feel that. The whole thing with the immortality, I guess it's the vampire... Damn, vampires are coming back now, too. It's the vampire argument of, like, you have immortality, but at what cost? Not as far as what do you lose for it, where vampires can't go out in the sun, blah, blah, blah. It's where's the point where you get bored? In a post-scarcity society, if we want to use your argument of, in a post-scarcity society where no one has to work and you're immortal, where do you get bored? For me, as a person who works, and even though I bitch about working constantly, working gives me something to do.
Yeah, and you're misunderstanding the post-scarcity. Post-scarcity isn't about no one working. It's about no one having to work.
For survival and quality of life.
You could work for fun. Like, there'll be people who want to work. That's why, like, people who are retired still go back and work.
And again, like, I'm sure everyone at this table and anyone that's listening could name 10 things off the top of their head that they want to do, skills they want to learn, experiences they want to have, places they want to travel to. You can think of 10 things right now that you either can't do for financial reasons or can't do because of time constraints.
Yeah, which actually, shameless plug here. I'm actually starting a YouTube channel and a blog about that very thing. It's like taking advantage of the time we have.
So yeah, actually, I do kind of want to have you talk a little bit more about that, because you pulled a lot of inspiration from the unus annus kind of line of thinking with that, right?
Yeah, we can bring that up. But while we're still on the whole getting bored, though, another good example of this, what I thought really portrayed this well was The Good Place.
That's a movie.
That's on my
It's a TV show. It's a really good TV show.
I've heard of it, but I have no idea what it's
about. So it's essentially about like the afterlife.
Okay.
It's like what happens after you die. I don't want to give too many spoilers. It's a really good show. I recommend everybody watch it. I think it's on Netflix.
Netflix, yep.
It goes into talking about this very thing. Like, at what point do you get bored in the afterlife? And like the whole last season talks about this and explains it really well. So like, obviously we gave the spoiler warning, so watch the show. So I'm actually going to talk about things unless you don't want me to.
No, that's fine.
So I try not to give too much away.
Yeah, try to not spoil it. Just talk a little bit more about the themes.
But like at the end, it's essentially everybody grappling with the fact that eternity is a long time. And there's despite how it seems like there's an infinite amount of things we want to do, that isn't actually infinite, and there will come a point when you are finished. Like, you are done, you have lived the life you want to live, and
you're at peace.
That's it. You're at peace. You're not...
You know, to make this as weird as it sounds, I actually saw... I can't remember... It was like a comic book panel. I want to say it was for a funeral home. As weird as that sounds, but let me get into it. It's this person dies, goes to heaven, does literally everything they want to in heaven, like all of it. And he goes to, large faceless God in the sky and goes, hey, I've done everything. What now? And then the next panel is him being born again as someone else. So I think that is an interesting, it's an interesting topic for a TV show, and, just an interesting topic in general. Like, when does... Eternity, you're right. Eternity is a long ass time.
Eternity is forever.
When do you get bored? Like, when there's nothing left to do, I guess.
Well, eternity is forever, but the universe is not, according to our current
according to heat death theory, yes.
Again, that may change, and we have a long time to change it or figure it out or whatever.
Yeah, human ingenuity goes a long way.
What we are missing is the stellar, universal aspect of this whole thing, right? Because we're not necessarily limited just to Earth or our solar system or even our galaxy, depending on what you want to do. So when you're talking about things like travel, tourism, and just experiencing all the universe has to offer, there's a lot of things that we could feasibly do, right?
Right.
So it's not like you're just trapped in some padded room or a jail cell for all eternity with nothing to do. It's not like some horrible purgatory hell kind of thing.
Yeah, the universe becomes a sandbox.
Universe Sandbox? Yeah. Sounds like a great game.
But I will, I guess, go into a little bit. Unus Annus was a kind of, I don't know if this was saying, an example of this, where, if anybody's not familiar, it was Mark from Markiplier and Ethan from Crank Gameplays. They essentially created a YouTube channel that released a video every day for a year, and at the end of the year, they deleted the channel. And the whole point was to show, the fleetingness of life, kind of, and to take advantage of the time you have, which kind of inspired me to make the YouTube channel, and what inspired me to kick you guys in the butt to get this going.
In the butt. Yeah, when I came over to record, none of the sound
to be fair though, I had been badgering you. This is something from before that, but I'm also doing a YouTube channel, and I'm going to be challenging myself, and so Laura's gonna be doing it with me to try new things every day, and instead of saying I want to do this, I want to do that, we're just gonna do it.
And you know what? Honestly, the fact that you don't want kids makes that immensely easier.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you could reach a point where it's I want to go to Hawaii. And the next day you're just going to Hawaii.
Yeah, and, part of that is, there is a financial freedom there. I'm not going to deny we are fairly well off. We're able to do things some people can't. I don't want to try to, flaunt something like that, but it's also something that a lot of the things, the biggest point, and I'll talk about this we'll link to the channel and things where I talk about this a little bit more. One of the bigger parts of Unus Annus is where they do fire swallowing. That's something most people, as long as you have someone who can teach you nearby, can do. Like, you just go and learn it. It's not especially like skills like that. It's not expensive to train someone to do it as long as you are in a financial position where you have some free money for entertainment. And like, that was the thing, is like, that's so cool. Like, I wish I could do that. And that's when I realized, like, I could.
Sure. Yeah, you can.
I could.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I'm getting into, like, the knife making stuff. Like, me and my dad have gotten into the knife making. He's made actually like some really cool knives now. I'm working on my first knife. I gotta find the time to fix the jig for the handle because Dad broke it. But other than that, like, I'm excited to finish that. I'm working into more towards getting a blacksmithing setup done. Like, I have stuff. Yeah, big shock. No one here saw that coming.
Compete on Forged in Fire.
Yo, but like, real talk, Forged in Fire is a great show.
And like, this comes back to something that Aaron and I talk about a lot, with you particularly. And I think Aaron is.
What, I have all these aspirations and I never do anything?
No, you say it a lot better than I do. With having the free time to do these things.
Oh, because I'm a bum?
Like, no. No. In a world where people don't have to work, you can follow your passions a lot more. And like, you can do these things you want to do.
Oh, because you guys can't figure out why I would want to continue working when I have all these other ideas?
No, that's not...
you might want to spend a couple months or years trying your hand at blacksmithing, right? Trying to figure things out. If you could make money off of it, great. But perhaps you can't, right?
Well, right, yeah.
There's no market
if you don't have the skill, yeah.
Or, again, there's only so many people that can make it as a independent, hobby blacksmith.
Yeah,
right?
like what I'm doing with the YouTube project. This is something I want to do, but it's not so like, if this doesn't get legs and take off, it's not something I'm going to be able to quit my day job and go follow this, even though it's something I would want to do.
Well, right.
I can't feasibly do it because I have to go to a job and work.
Well, yeah.
To be able to live. Which is what Aaron was saying. Like, I don't know. You make this point really well when we're talking about it.
Now I'm being put on the spot.
Yeah, I still have no idea. I still have no idea what the point is because it revolves around me, and now I'm confused.
It doesn't revolve around you.
You made it sound like it did. I was like, is this an intervention?
If you just don't, again, you don't have to work to survive and provide for your basic human necessities, right?
Right.
So I know we've talked about universal basic income, or like worlds where people don't have to work or don't have to work as much. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just say, there's not enough jobs for people. Here's an easy solution. Cut the working week in half and make 2 people have to do that work instead. So rather than working 40 hours a week, you're working 20 hours a week. That gives you an extra 20 hours a week to be a blacksmith or whatever the heck you want to do with your spare time, Gary.
You yell at me for using this podcast as a platform for my love of film noir, and now you've given it to the communists. God damn it!
No, but this is not even...
No, but I do.
And like, that's another, that you're stigmatizing this here, Gary.
It was a joke.
Yeah,
I know.
No, it's coming back to me, though.
But it is a legitimate criticism that people have. But it comes back to the point where when you're talking about a post-scarcity society, you're no longer talking about a society where capitalism works.
I think I'm trying to remember back to our previous conversations. Like, people have a stigma about not working or people that aren't working, right?
Right.
Like, I joke with my family and they give me crap all the time. Like, when I say my goal in life is to have to work as little as possible.
I mean, that's fair.
And it's not because I'm a lazy bum, but because the stuff I have to do to earn money is not the stuff I necessarily want to spend my time doing. And it's not like your blacksmith workshop, learning the skills and whatever isn't work. It's just not necessarily productive work or work that puts bread on the table. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, like especially the clarification versus productive versus income. Like, not every moment of your life has to be done doing what other people deem to be productive. If it's something you enjoy, that is producing happiness for you. That is a productive activity.
Right. And I guess, like, the main reason, I mean, I know a little bit about what both of you do. Like, you do civil engineering.
I'm technically a civil engineer.
And you work with dirt.
Yeah, I do drafting and design.
I play in the dirt.
Yes. So, you do drafting and design, you play in the dirt. And I cut grass for a living. But
Gary's actually our groundskeeper.
Well, but like, so here's the thing. I do lawn maintenance, and I also do like projects, as far as landscaping goes, mulching, stonework, things like that.
Yeah, you work for a landscaping company.
Yeah. So the thing is that's a little different in a way, between our three jobs is, at the end of the day, I look at what I've done, and I can be like, I can see it in front of me, and I can be like, hey, that's neat. I did that. Like if I, not so much with cutting the lawn. That's a very like old people way of looking at it. But like more with like the landscaping, if I make someone's yard look fantastic, good mulch, tons of flowers, things like that. I can look at that, and that's something I can be really proud of because, I did that with my hands. That's what I like. And I can see why, for me, not having that anymore, like, that's not necessarily scary, but, like, it makes me kind of look at things, like, in a bored way. Whereas I can see for, like, your job, when you're drafting stuff and all, like, I can see that getting boring. Dirt. How exciting can dirt be?
Yeah, but we're not talking about taking that away from you.
Right.
We're talking about giving you the option to not have to do that.
Yeah, that's why I was explaining myself being like, that's why living in this post-scarcity society is a little unnerving for someone like me who likes to see that that's like a job well done. And that's where I was coming from with that. But like Aaron had said, if you have more time to do the work that you enjoy, which for me would be like blacksmithing or, becoming a prominent distiller,
learning
things like
to play the accordion.
Bro, I am kicking ass on that accordion. I know how to make good noises.
You should have brought that to your grandmother. And
I did.
It
is up at my grandmother's.
Yeah,
it's currently up.
And like, I'm not putting people down who enjoy their jobs. Like, I'm not saying that's impossible. There are people, like I said, that given the opportunity would still want to work.
Well, yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the idea that people are working in order to survive is something that we want to push to get rid of, essentially. Yeah. Like, that is that should be the end goal of society, is that no one has to work.
That everyone has everything that they would need.
Or if people have to work,
at least the basic necessities
try to minimize
at first.
it.
Now, I kind of feel like we've gotten like not that we've gotten away from the immortality subject in a bad way, because now we're more on the post-scarcity society.
Yeah, this we can double back and talk about post-scarcity society in more depth.
It's not even the fact that I want to double back, because I think it's like a logical. I think we've narrowed the gap and made it so like, when you talk about immortality, we're going to get to the inevitability of a post-scarcity society.
Yeah, there's going to become a point where that is the end goal.
Now, here's my question. Even if you have a post-scarcity society, you're not always going to have good people. Especially with immortality, you're not going to have you're not going to have no bad immortal people. So, like, in a post-scarcity society, do you think crime is still going to be such a problem?
No, it won't be nearly as bad.
I think crime will be significantly reduced.
Yeah. It's been proven that when you give people the basic the basic necessities they need, they're much less likely to commit crimes. Like, a lot of people who are committing crimes are committing it out of a place of desperation,
or there is some sort of like, I don't want to say mental issue, but
there
mental is physiological or psychological issues that can play into those kinds of things too.
But there's also the boredom factor. Like, but that's a serious thing. Like, I knew people in high school that would steal shit and break shit that wasn't theirs. Like, they would break into houses and shit just because they were bored. Like,
but that's not
petty theft, auto,
petty thievery.
I would argue that is something that, well, first of all, in a post-scarcity society, you could simulate things like that, but also that is still coming from a necessity they're lacking. Like, you're not just bored and wanting to go harm other people, generally. It's because, either in your upbringing, something went wrong, or, like, a lot of people do it to get attention, too. It's not even necessarily that they're bored, it's that they want to get, like, they think it makes them look cool, or, like, there's a lot more to it. And, like, you're not going to get rid of bad people, but it's definitely not going to make crime worse. Like, meeting the needs of society is going to decrease crime. Right. And then you'll be able to focus more on the root causes of actual crime then, instead of people who just need to steal to live.
Yeah, another angle of the whole better technology, better understanding of the human brain, better healthcare kind of aspect is improved psychology.
Right.
And understanding of people's relationships and things like that. So
Making it
you
an
could
actual
potentially
science.
see improvements in psychology and therapy and different things like that can kind of help eliminate, like, we don't even know necessarily, again, we don't know entirely how the brain works and things like that, but like you could potentially curb a lot of that type of behavior or fix a lot of those problems through just like some sort of therapy psychology angle for crime.
Now, another question I would have is like, it's in this post-scarcity society where people are immortal, do you think that we're going to have such a bad clash of ideals still? Because I think this is like where you start to worry about things like, this is just because I think about it a lot, but religious violence. And now that sounds really bad the way I say it like that, but like, there are some people who just like to fight other people. Like war is part of the human condition. I don't
disagree with that.
Like, we've been going to war with each other since the first walk of man.
To be fair, we haven't had a major conflict in, I think, almost 100 years now? 80 years?
What?
Define
80
a
years.
major...
Since World War II.
When did that end? What
1940. Year? We're at almost...
No,
closer to
end?
1950. So we're approaching 70 years. 70, almost 80 years.
You said 100. I just
want
to clarify.
It's almost been a century, was my point.
But the Cold War was still a major conflict. It was masked by smaller conflicts.
It's a series of angry letters written.
Yes, but it wasn't World War II again.
I guess. I understand what you're saying.
We're trending away from
large-scale wars.
The angle I want to push here, Gary, is even if coexistence is difficult between certain different groups of people or whatever, right? Again, with the advent of space travel and being able to make habitats in space and more living area and that kind of stuff, you could potentially just start your own colony of people that agree with you and just go to Alpha Centauri or some other place that's not colonized or some empty plot of space and just kind of do your own thing and stay away from people.
But I think inevitably you're still going to end up with people warring with each other based off of ideals alone.
But no one's ever gone to war based on ideals. They always use their ideals to mask their true intentions to garner support for their cause. It's very rarely, like, you have the wars of religion, but I would even argue things like that were more about territory acquisition and putting down your enemy so they can't retaliate against you than they were about, oh, we're going to make you our religion.
Yeah.
Because even now, like, the wars in the Middle East are about territory acquisition. It's this group of people wants the land, the land, power, and wealth the other group of people have. And they're using religion, which is a very
easy way.
Yeah, it's a very polarizing factor. So it makes it easy to get people on your side.
Right. And, like, I guess that's where I'm trying to go. Like, I feel like when people have the means to do whatever it is that they want, if these things wouldn't become a problem, which is what I'm trying to say. Because, like, even not to take it there, but like the claiming of the Holy Land, we'll call it, like, 3 big factions fighting over this one area. Even in a post-scarcity society, in the end, who gets that? Do you think they're going to be able to coexist? So far, the answer's been no. Like, in a post-scarcity society,
progress in that direction, though.
Right,
like, things are a lot better now than they used to
right,
be.
Like I said, it's just like a metaphor for something. I'm not saying that specifically, but I'm saying, like, in the end, like...
So let's go with a more futuristic example that maybe is less of a time bomb.
Which is less polarizing.
So let's say we've colonized several different solar systems. We've colonized Mars. We have space stations all over the place, right? And the sought over land is just the original Earth.
Original Earth, yeah.
As, for some sort of prestige point or something,
It's one big game of Stellaris. The cradle of civilization, who claims Earth. Yeah, no, like,
kind of deal,
that is like an argument that I'm trying to make. Like, if we go the entire expanse of like the universe for many generations, who is to claim Earth? Like,
if we reach the point where we're able to do this kind of space travel, it's because we've been able to unify as a human race.
I don't know. I don't know if Unity is necessarily all about that, because, like, again, you have space as your frontier. You can go anywhere. You can splinter off and fracture off as much as you want.
And inevitably it will
in this
happen.
case, there's just no resource conflict.
I disagree with the fact that it's inevitable. I think it is possible that we are able to unify.
Though, because like
we split into factions and warring over resources, and when resources aren't a problem anymore.
But also with ideals as well. That's why we have differing religions. And what I'm saying is you're always, even if it's not like an ideological standpoint, you're always going to run into, well, I don't like that guy, he's a dick. So no, I'm not going to go with him to, Ursa Minor. I'm going to go to Ursa Major, and like that's where I'm going to live.
Yeah,
okay?
but you're talking about personal difference, though. You're not talking about societal difference.
I was going to say, on an individual level, I don't think most individuals are like, I want people to agree with what I believe in, or I want to kill or hurt or harm or punish other people. Right? On an individual basis, individuals don't usually think like that. Right? It's usually some sort of broader groupthink, mob mentality, or something like that. Right?
Right. But I am saying, like, eventually you might lead to a point, like, if we go off into the vast expanse of space, and we have these different colonies being set up everywhere, if you get to one colony, and you're like, okay, well, I kind of don't like how this is being run. Yeah, you could just go to a different colony and find one till it fits you, right?
Yeah.
Or go off and start your own.
Or go off and start your own.
See, the thing with technology...
what I'm saying is that's eventually going to lead into the mob mentality of, we don't like how they're running their colony, we're going to go and take it. I think it eventually will loop back to...
I mean, it could, but who cares?
Isn't that what we're trying to avoid?
I mean, yeah, you would want to avoid it, but that, like, if that's something that's going to happen...
I feel like if we make it to that point with technology and everything... You're kind of like self-selecting against people thinking that way.
What do you mean exactly?
Like, to get to that point, it necessitates that we don't kill each other in some big mega war anyway.
Right?
We have to pass the Great Barrier.
If people aren't able to shed those, you can call them aspects of humanity or whatever you want, then we might not make it to that point in the first place.
Right.
Which was my argument before, which is, like, in a society that has made it that far, it's not going to be a society that we recognize today.
Because, like, the way I'm thinking about it is it's like a gigantic loop. For what you're saying is, so we've gone to war, and we're eventually going to reach a point where going to war is just going to lead to the destruction of humanity. So then it becomes a fight to become unified so that we can ensure the progression of the race as a species, whatever. And then eventually we're going to get to that unification, but then expand so far out that it's just going to come back to the point where we're warring with each other.
No, because, see, the problem, I think it's a logical pitfall that you're succumbing to here, is that you're saying that we'll essentially revert back
to clannishness.
For whatever reason, that we'll revert back to clannishness. But if you look back on history, that has been about resource acquisition. People don't just go... It's like, ideological wars don't make sense. You're never going to have support for something that isn't going to benefit you in some way. So going and taking someone's colony, when all that does is give you a little bit more land, when there's already infinite land, you have no reason to do that. You have no reason to go to war with someone else where you'll lose lives, you'll lose... Which at that point is the most valuable resource. You're not going to be losing those things. You don't want to trade those for something that you can just go build another planet.
I would argue that evolution self-selects against unnecessary violence. Like, you're not going to go to, in some, like, tribal, hunter-gatherer conflict, you're not going to go and, like, risk getting killed or maimed or whatever in some conflict over land. If you can just turn around, go over the next mountain, and have a whole valley to yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's basically what space will be in the future. Even, like, again, with the technology and automation and stuff that's kind of implied with this type of space colonization, is you can literally pack up on your own, more or less, and just go to completely alone if you want to, and live out.
And be like No Man's Sky.
If you want to be some sort of hermit or
No Man's Sky type.
It's possible. You could do it. And so, again, I think given the choice, if there's unconsolable disagreements between groups of people, in that situation, it just makes more sense for them both to go their own way.
That is fair.
Right?
Now
It's just
Like you're looking back on history and trying to project it onto a society that isn't facing the same issues that
and that's fair.
previous society
It
had.
was just like a question that in my mind felt logical. I just wanted the opinion.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like I know where you're coming from, and it feels like that's what it
Right.
would tend back to. But then you get to the point where, if you think about it, it doesn't. Nobody wants to go to war. Like, this is never a thing where people like World War II. It was about acquisition of territory and power. It's not like
Crazy people.
yeah.
you get some individuals that get indoctrinated, swept up in the
And that's more that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the next, I'm worried about the next space Hitler. Like someone who, yes, we have everything that we might need, but I'm worried about that one turd in the punch bowl who might be able to stir a large amount of people up for no real reason.
But the problem is, though, in like Hitler's case, he had leverage because Germany was in a really bad place
after World
and he
War I,
promised to bring them out of it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you need something, nobody's going to be like, hey, let's go kill all those people. A lot of you are going to die, but let's go. Everybody's going to be like, why? Like, I like my life. Like, I have no problem with, now, if for some reason we end up having, penal colonies, or, we self-create these issues, yes, that's a possibility.
Well, I don't think we'll end up self-creating the issue, but the one thing that might be worth taking into account with this conversation is, where do aliens fit into the aspect?
Again, it goes to the point of taking losses. If there's another alien society out there that has beaten us to the punch and they're far more advanced than us, the cost of fighting us is zero. They could theoretically just wipe us off the planets we're on and just take them.
The universe is plenty big for the both of us.
But is it?
Until it's not.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
It's only big enough till it's not. That's the whole.
Well, and if the roadblock we pose is literally nothing, they would have no incentive to not just steamroll us over. If they weren't if they had no empathy for us, we could just think of it as when we are building a new apartment complex. We don't go and relocate all the ants and insects that are on that ground. They're just acceptable losses to our expansion.
Unless they're an endangered ant.
The true.
Well, yeah, from the two of us who work in construction. the Indiana bat. But, that's where you're, I'm guessing that's where you're going, war between factions.
Well, it's not even war between factions. It's just, even assuming that it's a neutral alien society, where it's oh, hey, you finally made it to space travel. Look at some of the neat shit that we have. And it's not necessarily their neat shit is better or worse. It's just neat shit that they came up with, and we want it. Because I can see that being I can definitely see that being a thing.
But logically, they would just give it to us because there's no cost. Well, that's the thing. It's I guess we're thinking about a society we don't know. There might be problems that issues that arise, but definitionally speaking.
Oh, I just had another idea.
Oh God, that's dangerous.
Intergalactic diseases.
Oh.
Nah. I guess, we could be exposed to something that's not what we've seen, bacteria and virus.
Or we could expose them to it, too.
Yeah,
which
you
could
never
also
know. Because, I suppose there could also be a point where your alien biology is so different that the diseases don't actually affect either side because they're just incompatible. But even so, obviously, any spacefaring civilization is going to have enough common sense to, quarantine
decontaminate us,
at least consider these problems.
Yeah.
It's not like people are going to be like, oh, what germs, I forgot they existed, and you know.
But that's also assuming they see us coming. When we crash land on a planet,
That's the
it's
Fermi
just
paradox,
oh God,
Gary.
What's that?
You're always going to see them coming. There's no way not to, pretty much.
Yeah, if you're advanced enough, if you're talking about primitive, yes, we could theoretically land on a primitive civilization's world and accidentally smallpox blanket the whole freaking world. Yes, that's a possibility. Accidental genocide is a consequence of space travel.
Why am I laughing at that term?
Like,
You could do it completely remotely and accidentally too. Send like a probe to a planet with the directive to terraform
that
it.
would suck.
And I know there's multiple sci-fi books that have probably covered that exact topic.
in the time it takes to get there, life has arisen on the planet, and we don't even realize it. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that would
just
be
like
terrible.
terraforms over the whole world, and
Yeah, that does sound pretty shitty.
Yeah.
I don't know. Modern problems will require
Modern
solutions that we haven't figured out yet.
I will answer one Dave Chappelle meme with another Dave Chappelle meme. Cause fuck them, that's why.
And like, yeah, we'd be really screwed if there's a alien race that just derives like immense pleasure from killing other races. That would definitely be an issue also.
like a predator style race where like they're
Destroyer of all.
where they just go out
devouring swarm.
Yeah, where they just go out and hunt, or just maybe they're such an eternally hungry race that they constantly need to be feeding on, stars, planets, people love those planets kind of thing.
For all we know, there's giant space creatures. Actually, for all we know, that's very unlikely. But
I mean,
like planet-sized whales,
sort of super genocidal alien race. I still feel like we would at least know they're out there.
We would have been.
We wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But
no, see, that's the thing. Like, there actually is like a super intelligent genocidal race out there, but they found our planet and realized all the stupid shit we did, and they decided that we were gonna be their reality TV.
There's actually an
Zoo planet.
SCP that the Red Storm on Jupiter, I believe, is actually like another race sent something to destroy the Earth, and it ran into Jupiter instead, and it's like slowly rebuilding itself there, and when it completes whatever it's rebuilding, it's going to come and destroy the Earth.
Oh, that's
the kind of thing. It's like, for some reason,
SCP
they picked
story.
us out to destroy us, and like Jupiter just got in the way
because it's so fucking big.
Yeah.
That's actually something that's interesting. Like, SCPs as a whole are like super neat because it's a crowdsourced story.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
I haven't read a single one.
You haven't read them?
You guys have mentioned this stuff like this a couple times, and I have yet to check them out.
They're really cool.
It's a really interesting form, and I remember a couple of years ago, some douchebag in Germany tried to copyright SCP, and he was like, yeah, I'm copywriting SCP. Everything on this Wikipedia is going to be mine. And you know what? I'm going to make money off the merch. Lucky enough, it got enough people behind it that whoever was overlooking the copyright was able to actually stop it.
Yeah, no, I would definitely, like, especially you like reading, so it's just imagine it's just a crowdsourced
short stories.
Yeah.
Not necessarily even
like
aliens,
but like,
kind of.
Yeah.
It's not, and they're not always bad. Like, there's some good ones, some bad ones, but
Peanut, the Eternal. Like, everyone has seen Peanut.
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
That's the one that moves that can move only when you're not looking at it.
Oh, is that SCP-716?
I don't remember the number. I just know everyone calls it Peanut.
Yeah, the concrete.
Yeah, it snaps your neck.
Yeah, when you're not looking.
Yeah. I mean, they're super neat.
Nah, it's not 716.
Which one's 716?
I don't know. I'm looking it up right now. But
yeah, I wouldn't worry. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll check that out at some point in time.
Oh yeah, because that would definitely that would be definitely something to talk about in a later episode. Because like I've always been interested in the idea of like a crowd-funded like where everyone can put their 2 cents in and have a coherent story.
Yeah, and like I'll give an example. SCP-716. It's a large locomotive and a variable number of cars, between 8 and 20 on average. Both the locomotive and cars appear to be in an advanced state of neglect. Physical damage dealt to SCP-716 appears to slowly regenerate over time. However, it maintains an appearance of extreme neglect and rust. SCP-716 can be physically moved with difficulty. However, the locomotive appears to be unable to function normally and appears to be missing many critical parts. Like, it goes on for 3 more paragraphs just describing like the properties of this, and like there's a whole thing where like certain information's redacted because like the SCP is a organization that seeks to protect humanity from these objects, essentially.
And there's also so the whole like underlying storyline of SCPs is like there's also a faction that seeks to free them. because who is humanity to keep them locked up?
I haven't come across that at all.
Well, that's what the video games are based on. That's what the SCP video games are based off of.
No, that's just they're just like the containment breach. There was a breach in protocol, and
but there's another faction that's seeking to stop the people who are trying to stop the breach.
I didn't even realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like Fox or something weird. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. Yeah, because they're
does
like,
ring a bell.
they're like, who is humanity to cage these creatures? They should be set free. They're the PETA of the SCP
It's like the
world.
people in the Jurassic Park 2, or is it 3?
Oh,
I don't remember.
All the dinosaurs are in cages, and they're going to be shipped to a zoo or something, and the people just go and unlock all the cages, and the dinosaurs like kill everybody or something.
Oh, that's in the first one, isn't it? When they land on the island and they have them all caged up, and they're going to be moving them.
I think that might be the second one. I don't know. One of those things where people make bad
Oh, the
decisions.
second, yeah, because it's like the fallback site.
Yeah.
They send them to the fallback site. Yeah.
See, I hate Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but
I'm glad the mic picked that up.
it actually picked it up.
That little bump right there.
Oh man, I gotta be careful, I guess.